I think this is good. I was hot and tired and thirsty. I had hiked over 14 miles that day, and I was still several miles from my car. I was losing the light as the sun was setting. I hadn't seen another human being in over 4 hours. And it was at that exact moment that I accidentally stepped on a sleeping bear. Now, there's a little suspense in the air. I'll let you know I did survive this encounter. I am not, in fact, dead. This story took place in 2014. I was hiking the Ray Lakes Loop, which is a 40-mile circuit in Kings Canyon National Park in California. And during this hiking experience, I encountered numerous wild creatures, and these encounters required all of my wits and all of my courage. On the first day, in the morning, I see a rattlesnake kind of slither across the path in front of me. And it just happened that at that time, a Girl Scout troop was coming the opposite direction on the trail. So I alerted the troop later, and they kind of gathered around the animal at a respectable distance, and the leader gave an impromptu lesson on the lifestyle of cold-blooded reptiles. I felt like a hero. I don't know if that counts as being heroic, but I was very proud of myself. Later that afternoon, I saw my first 2 bears. They were 2 decent brown bears. Now, if you've ever seen a bear in a zoo, I can assure you that when there is no moat or wall between you and the bears, it is a much more thrilling experience. When you're supposed to, when you encounter a predator like a bear or a mountain lion, you're supposed to kind of assume a strong body posture, kind of imposing body language. I chose a slightly different approach. I must have thought I could befriend the bears. I started talking to them like they were domestic dogs. I was complimenting them a lot. I was like, "Hey bear, oh you're a cute bear. How are you?" So those bears kind of mosey on, and I'm able to continue down the path. On the second day, I'm approaching a mountain pass, and I notice several placards stapled to trees. So I go up to read what the placard says, and it says, "Attention, a man has been seen in this area acting strangely. If seen, do not approach. Report sightings to the Park Service." I immediately start jogging out of the area. Now, I want to clarify, I was not super concerned about encountering this strange man in the woods. I was most worried about encountering a single female hiker. I have enough social intelligence to know that a single male hiker, upon encountering a single female hiker in a secluded ridge at 9,000 feet, the one way you cannot initiate that conversation is by saying, "I'm not the psychopath." Thankfully, I didn't see anybody, especially because as the fact that I was running, I would have definitely looked like the weirdo. So that takes us to day 3. Day 3, I wake up and I decide I would want to be done with this trip. So I decide I'm going to fit 2 days of hiking into 1 day, which was going to necessitate me hiking a pretty significant distance. So the end of the day rolls around. Again, I'm hot, I'm thirsty, I'm tired. I'm, for all intents and purposes, kind of shuffling, looking down, not cognizant of my surroundings. when all of a sudden I see this flurry of brown kind of in my peripheral vision. And it wakes you up really quick. And I take in, I observe that this is a bear. I've just surprised a bear. Now, the first thing I do is start looking for a bear cub, because I had known from my research before the trip that that was kind of the worst encounter you can have with a bear, if you surprise a mom with her cubs. So I'm looking around, and almost immediately I spot on a log overhanging the path, with its head between its paws, a bear cub. Now, in that moment, I was very conflicted, because on the one hand, this was possibly the most adorable thing I have ever seen in my entire life. But on the other hand, the presence of the bear cub meant that most assuredly I was about to be eaten alive. So I got out my plastic whistle and my Swiss Army multi-tool, complete with nail clippers, and I prepared for imminent mortal combat. Now, I was in a real pickle here because this is a circuit, and I was literally in kind of a towering canyon. My car was only several miles past the bears. And the sun was setting, so I kind of had to act quickly and had to somehow get past this obstacle of a mother bear that I had just surprised and her bear cub. And I was really afraid of kind of disengaging, making any sort of more furtive movements. So I talked to these bears, trying to negotiate with them for like 45 minutes. And I'm realizing I can't do this anymore. I can't wait anymore. I have to make a decision. And that is when I had a brilliant idea. And by brilliant idea, I mean absolutely idiotic. I know that the path kind of goes up and to the left. So my thought is, well, I'll kind of bushwhack into the undergrowth, go straight off the path, and then go a little distance and make a right, and I'll connect back with the path. So I made one last offer to the bears. I was like, I really don't want to do this. Please move. They weren't moving. I should also say, in hindsight, it's really deflating how quickly the mother bear determined I was not a threat. This bear went like 8 feet away, took a look at me, sat down, and just kept eating. So my pride was wounded. So now, cut back to I'm in the undergrowth. And I'm about 10 or 15 feet off the path when I hear very distinctly a loud stick crack behind me. I turn over my shoulder, and here's what happened. The bear cub, being new to the world and curious about its surroundings, and I don't think the bears had ever seen hikers leave the path, decided to follow me. Was just curious about what was happening. Now, because the bear cub is following me, this is a 100% true story, I'm not making any of this up. Because the bear cub is following me, the mother bear decides to follow me. So now I'm not entirely sure where I am, off the path, in the undergrowth, being followed by 2 bears. Now, before this trip, I had genuinely read an article on what to do if you were attacked by a bear. I had not read an article on what to do if you were adopted by a bear. At one point, I looked over my shoulder and I said, please don't do this. To my dismay and detriment, the bears could not be reasoned with. These bears were predators in more than one sense of the word. So here's how I extricated myself from this situation. Eventually, the mother bear got tired and sat down, and the cub would get no further than like 10 feet from the mother bear. So after the mother bear sat down, the cub went a couple more feet and then also sat down. I breathed a really big sigh of relief, hooked her right, and caught back up with the path. Now, I don't have a super great way to end this story. I was trying to think of this, reflect on this experience and think if there were any sort of kind of general lessons I learned that might be applicable in everyday life. And if you'll indulge me, I do think I found one. I'll share it with you. So, at times, life can be really challenging and confusing and chaotic, but there are a couple kind of core foundational principles that if you're able to kind of adhere to and embrace, that can make navigating consciousness that much easier. And here's what I learned. As you go about your everyday lives, it would behoove you to do your utmost to not step on sleeping bears. Thank you.